Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the jamesay wamesay show. I hope you're all doing good. The audience hasn't really grown very much. I've had one new member since I've come back, but it is what it is. We're gonna just keep doing our own thing, and if people like it, great. If they don't, too bad. All right. Now, first, I want to show you a close up of the Mark Hempel print that I've had in the background. Some of you have seen this in some of my videos, and some of you have seen it just on Facebook alone. But obviously, this is Death mixed with Alfred E. Newman. Now, the frame is a little beat up. Like, I bought this frame on Amazon, and it does not stand up to the travel that's required and the shipping and all that. So I have another frame coming that's a little cheaper, but it's also plastic, so it can't break then. Yeah, I got that at the Baltimore Comic Con. I got that signed by Mark Hempel. He's a really nice guy, and really go out there and support his books. He was one of the last guys on Mad when I still enjoyed Mad magazine. All right, and then we have Deadline. I have about 3 issues of Deadline. Some of you are familiar with this, and some of you are not. This is actually the first printing of. Here we go. All right, there we go. The Tank Girl. Oops. There you go. Tank Girl was first premiered in the pages of Deadline magazine. So yeah, you get the old black and white stuff, which I really dig. I really prefer the black and white stuff to having it being colored. It just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the colored stuff, it really pops and everything. But I think the colors get in the way of really looking and studying the black and white. All right. Then we have Charles Brownstein's magazine feature. Here's Feature magazine. Now this, well, here you go. Here's the back cover. Look at this nice little jam piece here. This magazine features really good interviews. The only thing is, Charles Brownstein was canceled. He got up to some shenanigans when he was in charge of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, I guess. And I think he might have taken money, allegedly, or maybe he sexually harassed people. In any case, they didn't do anything about it for like 20 years, and then all of a sudden they made a big deal about it. Now, I collect his magazines because I think the interviews are really superior, and I really want to hear what creators have to say. So, I have the double-edged sword with this guy. But here's another issue, a feature. Here's the back cover. It's the same as the front, but without the cover dressing. There you go. I actually haven't read this specific issue. It's got a lot of good reviews. It's got Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, who's also been canceled, Jeff Smith, and it says More, M-O-R-E, not M-O-O-R-E. Oh, and of course Dave Sim, Cerebus at 20. So that should be a good one. Now this issue is a bit dog-eared because I had this issue for years, and it's very good. That's Peter Bagg doing a riff on Alan Moore there on the front. Try to illuminate the glare there so you can see that. There's the back cover. Yeah, this was right after From Hell was finished, and he gave like a 30-page interview about From Hell. And then there was Dave Sim and Larry Martyr going back and forth about creators' rights and how Image has its flaws. And I think you're all aware of their flaws. If not, seek that out. That is on kwakk.org. If you're missing that issue, that's the only issue of feature that's on there. Another one I haven't read Here you go. This is David Lapham. I'm a big fan of David Lapham. I did do artwork on a book that he did the cover to. It was an issue of Guano Guy, which was created by my friend Mark Darden. Check that out as well. And let's see who is in here. All right. In-depth interviews, Stray Bullets, David Lapham, A Touch of Silver's Jim Valentino. You know him, he's from, also did Guardians of the Galaxy and Shadowhawk. All right, Brat Pack's Rick Veitch. Brat Pack is one of my favorite series. When I was a kid, I remember I bought an issue of Comic Scene magazine. Like, I was a rat kid. I did not have access to all the cool books that you could get at a comic store, and I was obsessed with the awesome artwork for the Brat Pack series. And I didn't get to read it for maybe 15 or 20 years, but I was just blown away by his material on that and on the Max Immortal. If you guys haven't read those, he has those print on demand on Amazon, and he's actually added several chapters and several books to the stories. So check those out. Then we have Adrian Tomine. Is it Tomine? I believe that's the pronunciation. With Optic Nerve. And 12 pages of alternate comics reviews. Well, let's check out the reviews. I think they're probably going to be in the back. Yeah, I found them already. They do Buddha on the Road by Colin Upton. And Through the Habit Trails by Jeff Nicholson. And just Spider Baby Comics in general by Steve Zed. Then we have recommended reading. Well, basically it has everybody that was in the issue. Let me see if there's more reviews, because it says 12 pages. I really only looked at one. Okay, Mary Fleener. Shout out to Mary Fleener, a great indie artist. Life of the Party. If that puts things in perspective as to when this magazine was published. Also, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken by Seth. Shout out to Seth, of course. Well, unfortunately, did we lose him? I thought we lost him recently. I could be wrong on that. Well, if so, I'm sorry, guys. Then Linda Medley, Castle Waiting. Now, Linda Medley, I know her because she colored a poster by Arthur Adams that was hanging on this wall over here when I was a kid growing up in this very room. This used to be my bedroom. Now it's my library and my studio. And then we got Soulwind by C.S. Morse. That's C. Scott Morse. Okay, I just turned too many pages at once. Oh, and then there's a 2-page Paul Pope review. I imagine that pretty much covers everything at that point. There wasn't that much Paul Pope out there at that point. Alright, that seems to be it for that one. And another one that I have not read is the Frank Miller issue. Now, I always found Frank Miller very interesting. I don't really care for his covers lately, but I think he's a fantastic storyteller, and that's where his strengths should be exploited by companies like Marvel or DC. I think he really has something cool. Like he drew a couple issues of the sequel to Ronin, and his particular issues were really worth looking at, in my opinion. Here, I'll turn this sideways for you guys. Let's see what this issue has. All right. It has Frank Miller, the definitive interview. And it has C. Scott Morse once again, Jason Lutz, and Eddie Campbell again. And I have an issue of this, of a different issue with Eddie Campbell, I believe on the cover. I have it downstairs though, but you know, I pretty much have most of the feature stuff. I can't think of the ones I don't have, but I'm sure there might be some out there. You know how hard it is to find them complete on eBay and everything. All right, And then we have the last couple issues of 8 Ball. Now the reason I want to show you these is because they're a complete ripoff. Like if you go to like Barnes and Noble or one of those places, you can get everything that's in this really thin volume here, spread out into a hardcover for like 29, 30 bucks. You know, it's great art. You know, I think that Daniel Clowes is a very fantastic artist. I prefer his humor stuff. All right, he also cashed in on this book. This is The Death Ray. This is another area. This is another issue of 8 Ball. This was turned into a hardcover as well. This is not a collection, you know, or that is not a collection. But you get like probably about 6 panels per page, whereas here you get 12. And if you bought it the first time, you paid about $7 for this, and that's $30 for a hardcover is kind of stupid. All right. Oh, by the way, the theme is my magazines and oversized books, if you haven't noticed. Then we have The Comics Interpreter, with an awesome cover by Hans Rickett, who has worked on several issues with me and Steven Peters on his Comics First stuff. Here you go. Let me fold this out so you can get the full scope of his stuff. This does have another Paul Pope interview, I believe. Let me see what else this has. Hans Rickett, Paul Pope, and Glenn Fabry are interviewed in the first. This is the first issue of Volume 2. So I probably have a lot of catching up to do on that series. I used to have that back in the 90s, but I rebought this copy on eBay. All right, then I have several issues of cartoonist profiles. All right, if you guys follow me on Reddit, I constantly post articles from these magazines to the comic strip history group, to pretty good success, and you get all sorts of cool stuff here. Like here's a picture of Roy Crane and Dick Brown and all these guys. They did a jam piece, which I've never seen the art for. I looked online for that. There's a ton of guys here. Sorry if I'm missing any big names. I just picked some names out of the checklist there. Now, I only have a few issues of this. All right, here's George Gately. He did Heathcliff cover. There's an interview in here. Let's see the back cover. It's got a bunch of names on there, but I'm too lazy to look at what they what the significance is there. It might just be a contest. I don't know. I see a lot of strip names at the bottom. And like Andy Cap, Mark Trail, a Wizard of Id. So I'll have to take a look at that later. Alright, and here is the last issue that I have. Alright, now this theme was... Well, it just says Madison Square Garden. Doesn't really say anything about comics. But I'm sure there is some significance to that. Now, the reason I'm showing these off is because I use a site called kwakk.info. It's kwakk.info. And they have every issue of cartoonist profiles. These used to be on archive.org, but they got taken down. I'm thinking it's only a matter of time before that website gets taken down too, the kwakk.info one. But if you are a researcher or you're into comic book history, check out that website. They really have, I think it's like 12,000 different magazines. I'd say about 2,000 of them are in French or Spanish, but 10,000 magazines full of interviews with pretty much a who's who of comic books. Like if you can think of them, I'm sure you can find interviews in their vast library. Oh, okay. Here's a Schlepzig sketchbook. Now, Schlepzig was a friend of mine. I've mentioned him several times in the past. he's the guy that got me into using Zipatone effects on my artwork. Like, he showed me an app that you could do that to your artwork, and I used that. Thanks to him, he showed me how to use layers, and I wouldn't be able to do comic books the way I do them now without this guy. He's really made a difference in the short time he had here on Earth. Here you go. Here's an April O'Neil. He really had a unique, idiosyncratic style. He had a plans for a comic book. Like, the plot was basically, why did the chicken cross the road, and also to get to the other side. But obviously, when your life is cut short, you don't get to do all your plans. Looks like there's a lot of April O'Neil. Okay, 30 Days of April O'Neil, it says on the cover. Shows you how long ago it's been since I've looked at this. Yeah, this is very good stuff. There you go. Is that Rocksteady or Bebop? I don't remember which one is which. Obviously, Casey Jones looking very monstrous there. All right, let's give you one last look. All right, here's April surrounded by the turtles. That's pretty cool. All right, and let's see what the last one is. It's a bonus. It's another. I'm guessing it's April, but she's got a different jacket here. But there's the turtles above whoever this character was. And here's the back cover. He really had that really cool style. He would kind of make a mess, but an organized mess. You know what I mean? Okay. Now we have Gente Menuda. This comic was a big deal for me growing up. My grandmother lived in Spain, and she would bring me copies of Gente Menuda because, like, even as a little kid, she knew I was into comic books. So let's see here. This was 1990. So I was probably still in grade school, just at the end of it. I didn't go to ninth grade till 92. Okay, now Gente Menuda is in Spanish. Let me show you the interior here. So it had Mortadella y Filimon every issue. Like, they had the covers to every single issue. I think because they're like the homegrown strip. You know, the artist actually recently passed away. It was F. Ibanez. I forget what the F stands for, because I think he just went by Ibanez. But I always liked his style. I've got several books of his artwork on my shelf. I'll show those off maybe in the next video. Alright, here's Capitan Treño. I think that's a Spanish strip. My mom has mentioned hearing of the character, like, growing up. So I'm thinking maybe it's like a Prince Valiant, like, ripoff kind of character. Although the strip is more traditional. They have word balloons and everything. Sorry, the paper is not the highest quality, but it does look really, really nice. Like when we get to a certain point in the book, you'll see what I mean. Still having trouble. I'm still on the same page I was on. Okay, here we go. Here's more Captain Treño and Conan. There you go. Now those are all in Spanish, and everybody gets 2 pages basically. But it continues. It was a Sunday supplement, so I think it was probably free then. If you got your paper, you just get this for free. All right, more Conan, and here's Super Lopez. I do have some Super Lopez books as well. Fun superhero parody stuff. Unfortunately, I can't read Spanish, but yeah, but you get the humor in the drawings. Okay, more Super Lopez. And the reason I'm showing this is Lieutenant Blueberry. This was my first exposure to Jean Giraud, aka Mobius. My grandmother didn't know it, but she changed my life forever with these pages. This was the very issue I had as a kid. Well, let me correct that. This is actually a copy I purchased since then. These are really hard to get, but I have a friend in Spain who actually gave me several copies of this in exchange for some Cerebus books. Now this page, I bookmarked this page, really, really blew my mind as a kid. It really stuck with me for some reason. I was just really, really impressed. I knew I was looking at something different. Now, by comparison, we only get 2 pages, so the other page is Spider-Man. Classic Spider-Man. Once again in Spanish. And once again, I'm also saying once again in Spanish for a reason. Okay, let's see. Well, here's the Spider-Man and Zippy Zoppy. There you go. That's that's a kid's comic, but the Mortadella and Philemon is more of a spy comedy series. Okay, one more page to go that I want to show you then. Okay, I'll just show you the very last page. Okay, this is Tintin. Now this story is in English, but you'll notice on the sides we have translations to the material for kids to basically grasp everything. I think this was to teach them. Oh, let me show you. This page doesn't have the translations. It might be on the first page of the Tintin section. It was a lot easier to open up. Let's see. Okay, yep. Here we go. There's a little glossary down there. Oh, my fingers are covering it up there. So, I'm sure it's just the harder words, but that's a good idea. I think we could probably adapt ideas like that here in America. Okay, let me show you my many copies of Gente Menuda that my friend, it was Luis Roldan Torquemada, by the way. Shout out to Luis. But you see, he sent me 30-something issues of the series. This is issues 3 through 36, I think. So that's pretty awesome. And that's pretty much all I have. There wasn't very much material by my friends besides dear departed Schlepzig. But there you have it. We have another episode in the bag. And here we go. Here's everybody's favorite cover. And let's flip. And we'll be reading something by somebody in the comics industry. This book is chock full of stuff. Alright, this chapter is on storytelling once again. And let's go with Kelly Jones. He says, "From my point of view, anything has to have a point. I don't like stereotypical storytelling. I don't always like a neat ending. I like knowing someone's doing something in the book for a reason." All right. That's all we've got, folks, and we'll see you next time for the Jamesy Wamesy Show.